All right, guys, welcome back. We got another Doom of Fools podcast. We have one of the best CDH judges in the Southeast, Russell. What's up, Russell? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I always try to start at a 10 and end at a 1. That's kind of my thing.
You're good.
You're very like chill, like whatever, bro. You're very a judge.
Yeah.
You're the most judge I know. I don't think I've ever seen you mad. You're just like, yeah, man, you lose. It's fine.
Well, sorry,
Sucks
DQ'd.
to suck. Yeah, I do want to say a quick story before we get into it. We're going to talk about judges and all that stuff in CDH.
Mhm.
But Russell, he judges Sky High in Florida, and I remember one time in June we did the partner event, and first round, Russell goes, "God damn, dude, until he got rude, I thought about building that. This list is awesome," and I'm like, and everyone just looks at me, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" And it was so funny.
It was
He didn't care. It was
it was
good
the
times.
exact deck that I built for that tournament if I was going to play in it.
Yeah, another tournament I built Tenma Sakashima in mid round, literally mid round. He goes, "This deck list is fucking sick, dude," and everyone just looks at me, looks what I'm playing, and I'm like, "Shut the fuck up, Russell."
I think it was like a
It was
hidden
so funny.
commander or something. Like,
Who knows? We were fucking around.
mhm.
It was a good time, but I couldn't recommend Sky High enough. But let's get into it, man. Let's peel back the curtain a little bit. When and why'd you get into Magic?
So I've been playing since 2012, I think. I started during
Okay.
Origins, but I started as a limited player. I never got like super competitive. I was young. Um, but I've been playing now since 2012. I took a break in between for college, but I
What's
started
up?
back up in 2020, and that's
Hmm.
when I started playing competitively as well.
Cool. So 4 years competitively. Okay, cool. Do you remember the set? Everyone remembers the
I
set.
started playing. Actually, it may have been a little bit before. I got back into it during Throne of Eldraine Theros.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. With that, I think that was after Thassa's Oracle.
Theros was Thassa's Oracle.
Theranos was best word.
Hmm.
And Honorable Breach.
Yep, Breach, Thassa's Oracle. There's a lot of Uro came out of that.
What a time!
Yeah,
What a time to enter CDH.
Theros Beyond Death was a set.
Why? Why? We could have got one of any of those cards. It would have been fine. 3
And I mean,
Uro.
right before that was Oko as well in Throne.
I put Oko in the Nadu. Like, why, guys? Why do y'all keep making these Simic busted cards?
Three
Simic is good.
three mana Simic broken card. You have Uro, Nadu,
Cannon's 2 mana.
Oko. Kinnon's too. Kinnon, he's on the lower end of the curve.
Well, Cannon's still broken
Oh
though.
yeah, no,
But
Kinnon's
yeah,
great. Love Kinnon.
I don't know why he's 2 mana. He could easily been 3 mana.
I mean, I play my 3 mana card.
That's
You know my 3 mana card.
oh yeah. We're gonna talk about the baby girl later for sure. So yeah, man, let's get into it. I was looking to get a judge on the podcast. I want to peel back the curtain today. I want to get I have probably 5 to 10 people on my Discord was like, oh my god, you're talking to a judge. You should ask him this, ask him that, ask him this. There's so many new, I even did a mini tournament last night on Spell Table. There's so many small details we just talked about before we started recording that I hope someone can learn something from this like I am.
Yeah, of
So
course.
let's get into it, man. How'd you end up being a judge, and do you love it? Is it
I
awesome? Does it
I
suck?
very much love the rules of games. Anytime I've ever played a game, I like getting into the nitty-gritty of how things work, and that's actually why
Yeah.
I ended up looking into becoming a judge because one of my
Mhm.
local judges, the guy who actually certified me, David, uh, I would always bug him about rules and like why it works this way, why it doesn't. He goes, just become a judge if you really want to. But yeah, I mean, I really picked up playing during COVID, which I had a lot of time on my hand to learn rules. So I
Ian
ended up,
told me the same thing.
yeah,
He was like, "I didn't have a job. I'm just chilling, playing CDH all
I
day."
was sitting at home gold fishing CDH. Like it's what I did, learning interactions, learning rules, and then I started playing modern competitively after
Mm,
that started opening up again, and got into the rules of that. And yeah, that's really when I became a judge, which is 2 years ago
mm.
now, 3 years ago. So
4?
well, I
COVID
started
was 2020.
2020 is when I started playing competitively with CDH. I became a judge 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah, but I
Okay,
went deep into it. I
okay.
mean, I have read the CR unfortunately.
Mhm.
The
But
CRB,
as a judge,
the comprehensive
yeah.
rules, which is every rule in Magic.
Well, my brother, he's been playing Magic for 30 years and he used to judge 60 card events
Mhm.
probably 10, 15 years ago. And I think that's just a whole different ball
Oh, yeah,
game,
100%.
and
60 card versus
but
Commander is in completely different games.
well, and 10 years ago
Oh,
too.
of course. Yeah, no, everything has
Yeah.
changed. Everything changed from a few years ago.
Yeah, I had a thing last night where we're playing in league and I was going for the draw. I'm like, guys, I could go for the win, but I'm probably gonna get stopped. I'm gonna go for the draw. So my brother was like, "What? That's so weird." I'm like, "Yeah, man, because draw's a point, right? We'll get
Mhm.
into draws later, the big controversy. We'll get into that later. But like Commander and 60 card, it's not even the same thing because they have their own rules. It's We're gonna get into all that, and I'm super excited. So what goes on in like judging an event? Like, is it hard because you're kind of like playing the TO? You're kind of make sure everything's good. You have a couple of judges under you. Is it hard to keep up with, or is it kind of like just
Really
you have to be on your toes?
really depends on the size of the event. If it's a local event, just less than, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable for Commander judging up to like it's 50, 60 person tournament. But if it's getting
Mm,
bigger than that, when you're having sub judges underneath you, you have head judge, it's definitely a process to get the everything you need done, making sure everything stays on track, especially if things are going into time and you're going over the schedule, you know. But it's not all bad. I mean, judging is a lot of fun, which I
Is it?
mean, I
It doesn't look like fun.
I love it. But I mean, that may just be me. Everyone who I talk to is a judge. The reason
Mhm.
they do it is because they love the game. Nobody judges because it's a good paycheck. It's not a job.
It's not financially.
Used
Yeah,
to
I
be,
get you.
but pre-COVID, I mean, when you could travel for a tournament once a weekend, I mean, some people made a living doing it, like as the higher L3s, but not anymore.
Yeah, like Sheldon Menery, the goat. He
Hmm.
he was one of the highest judges you can get,
Yeah, he
and
he
then
was a
he got
judge
into
back when it
Magic.
was 5 levels, and he was an L5.
Yeah, yeah, and it was here in Tampa, I
Hmm.
believe. That's sick, dude. So I wanna jump right into the sauce if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
go for it.
Fucking September was a fucking month to remember, huh? We got the bands, we got the RC, we got death threats, we got fucking all types of shit, dude. So as a judge, I don't really care about the bands. I've talked about that. That's old news now. It's
Bands are
been a few
bands.
weeks, but I want to talk about the RC and how do you think going forward, Wizard? I know everybody has their own opinions, but as a judge,
Mhm.
what do you think? Hey, if what's going to happen, and do you think they're going to make Commander its own format? I
So,
mean, CDH its own
of course,
format.
yeah. No, I personally do think that one, the bands are aimed at a split in the format. I know the RC did suggest that split in the format, and that kind of got shot down.
Yeah,
And then the bans, obviously, death threats over a card game. Don't do it.
that's so dumb.
But
That's oh my god, you lost money on your mana crypt.
yeah, like yeah, it's a card game. It's basically stocks. It's you lose money, you gain money sometimes. But
Mhm.
I do think that Wizards taking over the format as the official rules committee is going to be very different. Like
Hmm.
I know that they were talking about doing the um, bracket system for
Ugh.
for tiers of
Oh.
cards.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I do think it would be better to just have two separate ban lists. One for a casual format, one for a competitive tournament format.
Really?
It
As a judge, you think that, or as a
it's
player?
easier in both regards.
Okay.
Because if you have a mindset going into a casual game
Mhm.
that these are the cards that you're allowed to play with, you
Mhm.
still have that rule 0 if you want to. Everybody talks about rule 0. You can discuss
Mhm.
with who you're playing with. If your table's okay with you playing with certain cards, fine. Even if they're on the ban list, even if they're not legal, silver border, whatever. That's up to
Mhm.
your rule 0. But having a baseline is what you want. Having something that you could go to an LGS, sit down, this is my casual deck.
Mhm.
Makes it easy for everybody. You don't have to have that rule
Yeah.
0 that way.
Right.
The only time that the competitive list would be used is one if you're in a pod that you're like, hey, we're practicing for a tournament. I'm going to be using a competitive deck.
Mhm.
Or maybe you just enjoy a more competitive format, and you can agree with
Like
your
me.
pod that this is a competitive format, even if you're not planning on playing in a bigger tournament or an actual paying tournament.
Yeah. CDH is
It
fun. I
is.
don't no, I don't
I
I don't know what people think.
I
Yeah.
love a faster game. If I
Yeah.
can get 10 games in the time frame it would take me to play one casual game, fine with it.
Yeah.
I have no
I'm on
issue with
Rockside
it.
right now.
Yeah.
I agree.
If game's done by turn 3, it just means we have more time to play more games.
Play more games. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it I think that it's fine in a sense of having that baseline, like I mentioned.
Mhm.
Then for tournaments, the TO or whatever network you're going to be running these tournaments on, currently Top
Mhm.
Deck, but if Wizards does come out with their own way of running these tournaments, then
Yeah.
that ban list, if it's that competitive level ban list, would be able to be used. That way it's
Mhm.
not a up to the store, up to whoever's running it tournament. If it's
Mhm.
ran through Wizards, this is your ban list. Also makes it really easy to run tournaments. You're not going to have different decks
Yeah.
for different places. You're not going to have to swap out cards if you're changing. If you're one place uses
Right.
top deck, one place uses uh,
The only
eminence.
Yeah, the only issue I have with that is proxies.
Of course. So
I
the big
went to
thing,
that 5K with you, and
mhm,
8 of my friends were like, "Can't go. I don't have a real deck,"
the
and that
big
sucks. And I want to
big
go.
thing with Wizards taking over is proxies. One of the big things in 60 card formats, one of the big things in anything officially ran by Wizards, no proxies.
Yeah.
Top Deck doesn't care. That's not a rule Top Deck has. A lot of stores don't care. A lot of stores,
Mhm.
obviously, it's you don't want a piece of paper that says the name of the card. You have a printout of the card,
Yeah, yeah. You want the
whatever.
art?
An
Yeah,
actual card that you can recognize, not
yeah.
I
You
know
don't want
I know a lot of
this.
people yeah, exactly. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people love their cards that are, some random art that they've picked as a proxy. Keep it official. It's better for everybody. That way everybody knows what you're playing. But the big disparity between Wizards and Top Deck, which is, Top Deck I think is the pretty much gold standard right now for tournaments being ran.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. It's not even close.
So Top Deck don't care. That's at the TO's discretion. If Wizards are running it, it's gonna probably be no proxy. That's
Well, I know with the Boyle or like CCS, I believe they do up to 10.
I know.
I think you have 10 proxies. I believe.
Proxies are currently at TO discretion, just because it's not officially ran by Wizards. I've seen
Okay.
10. I've seen 15. I've seen reserve list cards only.
Hmm.
And then I've seen 100%. Personally, if you're allowing 10,
What's the difference?
allow them.
Yeah.
As long as
Yeah.
they're official art, as long as they're not, just random pieces of paper, fine.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
get reserve list for the reason of monetary value. Like, yeah, you're not even if you own the card, you may not want to be playing with the card.
Right. You're time twister. You don't want to shovel that
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
time twister, cradle. If you have a random judge foil or something, fine.
The dual
Yeah,
lands. Dual lands are getting up there
dual
again.
lands
And
are
it's
getting
like
up there again. I mean, I
I don't
think
want to shuffle
underground.
my underground
Yeah,
sea.
underground
Yeah.
seas are getting back close to 6 or 7. So,
6. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
so
You can get a heavy play probably for 5,
you
but like
can, yeah, but if
a near mint
mhm.
is like probably an 8, 9.
And then
Yeah.
obviously, if people have beta or alpha versions of these cards, they're also going to be more expensive.
Yeah. Well,
So,
don't play with
of
those.
course.
Don't be silly.
So it really comes down to the TO's discretion.
Mhm.
Personally, I usually work with 100% proxy if you want. Well, not necessarily 100% proxy. Up to 100 are allowed. If you want to proxy your basic lands, go for it, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's not a issue of mine as a judge if you run proxies. I would much rather you know how to play the deck you're playing. I've run into some issues where people proxy up a deck that they have no idea how to run, and that is a bigger issue for me because then
It gets
it gets confusing. You get slow play. You have people trying to understand how to run a deck in the middle of a tournament, which is not where you should be understanding how to run a deck.
Yeah, but as a judge, right, you can't, let's get into it a little bit. So, slow play and missed triggers is a big one.
Hmm.
And hey, this guy called me a stinky word and I didn't like it. Let's talk about it as a
Yeah.
judge.
So
What's the
that's
recommendations and the reprimands and all that stuff?
that is getting much more into the infractions side of tournaments, which
Mm-hmm.
those only exist at a competitive or higher level event.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing at regular, if you're playing at an LGS just for fun, obviously don't go cursing out people you're playing with, but the
Mm-hmm.
IPG, which is the infraction guide, only exists at, at competitive or pro level play. There is no pro level of play for commander, so it would really only be competitive, and that's up
Mm-hmm.
to the TO or judge's discretion if they're running it at that level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you get slow play. That's where you get mistriggers. That's where you get warnings and game losses and all that fun. The
Turn skips.
turn, yeah. So
That's like the new thing.
Top Deck came out
Turn
with
skip is rough.
a IPG addendum. So it uses the basic Magic IPG with either some additions for multiplayer or changes to penalties because a game loss in Commander is a match loss, unlike in a 60 card
Yeah,
format.
there's no 2 out of
Yeah.
3. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think a turn skip is detrimental in
That's
CDH, but that's a
that
lot better than a game loss.
which is effectively the same in a format where a turn skip can entirely decide the game. It
Right. Right.
is
Where they don't even untap?
exactly. It's
Oh,
equivalent. It's comparable to a game loss in a 60 card format, where also a fun thing about 60 card format. People always think it's best of three. It's not best of three. It's first to two.
first to 2.
Yeah, because if you play 4 games and you draw all 4 games, you still got two more to play.
Right.
You
You
do
don't really
need
see draws a lot in 60 card. That's weird. Maybe in the high play.
in more competitive play, it's rarer, but it does happen.
Yeah.
I've seen people
Mhm.
Boros charm to draw the game.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll talk about mistriggers a little later. So, kind of let's get to the brass tacks. Um, so CDH.
Hmm.
So, what does it take for somebody to get a turn skip, to get knocked out, to get, hey man, don't do that again? What is the most common thing that you see? And then also, what's the most common like misconception of a rule do you see?
The biggest one that I see currently is the mistriggers because a lot of people go
There's
off.
so many.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of ways of missing triggers. There's a lot of different types of mistriggers actually. The
Yeah.
biggest thing that I see is people attempting to fix it or want the fix to be the old way that was changed a few years back, which is May triggers are chosen as no or declined, whatever the option was, and required triggers cannot be missed. So they would go on the stack
Right.
now. That is not how it works anymore. That was changed. I'm not exactly sure the time frame. I think it was 2017. So it's been a while, but a lot of people go by the old way or think it goes by the old way. Missed triggers now are deemed into a few categories. The big umbrella ones are detrimental versus beneficial. Detrimental mistriggers are things that are bad for you. That would be
Like
obviously
back to negations.
pact of negations before the ban, mana crypt triggers, something that would hurt you, cause you
Mm.
to lose the game, sacrifice a creature, something like that.
Slaughter packs,
Yep.
stuff like that. Okay.
Any form of pact, any of the in your upkeep pay or lose.
Final
Final Fortune
fortunes.
if you
Yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah.
beginning of the turn lose. Kiki Jiki, sacrifice the token at the end step. That sort of stuff.
Mm.
Those are
Mm.
detrimental triggers. If you miss those, that's where you get the warning. Missing detrimental triggers, especially if you're doing it on purpose, can even be cheating.
Correct. Like that's what I hate about the pact of negation thing. I know I've seen it. Oh, I forgot my pact of negation, but it's my second main phase. What do you want to do about it?
So
And it's
there
like,
is a fix
what?
for that.
You don't get a turn.
No,
What do you
there
mean?
is a fix
Yeah.
for that. So if you pack, like, so we'll go with pact of negation. You don't pay that blue 3. You don't even bring attention to it. You have until the next turn you have where it would have triggered.
Mm,
So if we're playing, you cast
mm,
pact. I have until the start of your next turn to bring attention to it.
But you know the stack wars get so crazy, and
Of
then I
course,
got countered, and
things
then I
get
get a
missed.
turn.
Yeah.
Untap, upkeep, draw.
hmm
Now I'm in my main phase. Attack with Timna. Draw cards.
hmm
Second main phase. Oh, I forgot about my pack trigger.
So at that
It's like
point, what happens
you've already
is,
tapped your mana. You've
oh yeah,
already,
no. So that's the big thing. If you
yeah,
miss your pact trigger, me as the opponent can choose to put it on the stack, and if you're in a pod, it's a vote, majority wins, not including the person who missed the trigger. If they
right.
vote to put it on the stack, so what used to happen is you lose because you declined to pay for the trigger, you lose. That
Okay.
doesn't happen anymore. Now what happens is as the player, you can then have the trigger put on the stack or decline to put it on the stack. If they decline to put it on the stack, they do not lose. The trigger didn't happen.
I hate that. I
Now,
hate that.
if you choose to put it on the stack, they have the opportunity to pay. It does not rewind back to the upkeep. It will get put on the stack now. If they cannot pay for it, they will lose then.
And can they respond? Can they
It's a trigger
cast
that
a
goes in
dark
the stack.
ritual?
Yep.
Can they?
It is a trigger that goes in the stack then. So you
Oh,
could respond to
so
it at
they can hold
any.
priority.
Yep.
They can born upon a
Yep.
win. They can.
It is why, as a player, you should very much pay attention to your opponent's board.
Mm.
That's one of the biggest things that I would
A lot of
recommend.
new players.
It's one of the
A lot of
biggest
new
things
players. They do
I
this,
would
and it's like,
recommend
dude, we have
is
yeah.
don't tunnel vision on your game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's a tip for anybody playing 60 card formats, 1v1s, pods, anything. Don't tunnel vision on your own game. Yes,
Yeah.
obviously focusing on your own game plan is important. It's how you win. But keeping an eye, making sure your opponent's playing right, making sure your opponent is putting cards where they're meant to. If cards meant to go to exile and it goes to the graveyard,
Mm-hmm.
make sure your game is playing correctly. That includes what your
Mm-hmm.
opponent's doing because they're in the same game. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to triggers, you are not required to tell your opponent about any triggers that they have. You
Really.
may if you want to. You are not required. Even if they're detrimental, even if they're beneficial, you don't have to tell them anything. They miss their Shieldred trigger, that's on them. They miss
Hmm.
the Shieldred trigger from you drawing a card and losing your life. Doesn't matter. That's their trigger to
So,
remember.
what if you purposely, well, say you remember the trigger,
hmm
but you purposely, because it doesn't benefit you at all if you remind them the trigger. That's not cheating if you
So
don't remind them.
it's their trigger.
That's their trigger to keep up with.
If it's their trigger and you remind them, that's perfectly allowed.
Right.
That's perfectly allowed.
Right.
hmm
Okay.
There. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you can't remind them of their trigger. Let them play the game." No,
Mm-hmm.
you can remind your opponent of any trigger, even if it benefits them. Even if it, especially, I would remind your opponent of triggers that are detrimental to them.
Right. So let's go back a little bit. So you said detrimental. What was the other one? Is that like
Beneficial.
a draw trigger?
Yeah. So
Beneficial.
beneficials
That's a
would
missing
be,
more more.
yeah, draw triggers, like life gain. Uh, those are probably draw triggers are usually the big one. Ristic Study, Mystic
Smothering
Remora,
tithe.
Smothering
Yeah.
Tithe, anything that would benefit you. And specifically, triggers are looked independent of themselves. They
Yeah.
don't take into
Yeah.
factor game state.
Right.
So, say
Right.
I have an empty library. and I have an Esper Sentinel trigger, that is still a beneficial trigger, even though it would kill me.
Hmm. Even though it is detrimental,
Yes,
but the trigger is still
a
in that
beneficial
category.
trigger.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense
So
because you are drawing a card. Yeah.
now, if you're purposely missing your Esper Sentinel trigger to not draw a card from an empty library, you're cheating.
Well, someone's gonna tell
Yeah.
you. I'm gonna wait and
Somebody's
cast
gonna
this. Yeah.
remind you,
I'm gonna
somebody
get you.
should remind
Yeah.
you because at that point that's their best option. But
Right.
in terms of rules, it is still considered a beneficial trigger.
Okay. So let's just go through it for if anybody's new to CDH.
Hmm.
This is what I kind of base the podcast on. So say I have player A is casting a spell, player B's he has it or succedi, and then it's me and you, right?
Hmm.
So say it's like, okay, Mr. Gamora trigger, da da da, I missed the trigger, I missed the smothering tithe in your upkeep, yada 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 yada.
Hmm.
What is the threshold? What's the 5 minutes later, or the spells on the stack, or okay, I'm gonna untap upkeep draw. I'm gonna play this land, do this. Oh man, I have my smothering tide trigger. How does that work?
So
Like, what is the definition of hey, I missed it, put it on the stack? Like, trying to help the new players here.
the official answer is the first time it would become relevant to the game. So with Smothering Tithe, as soon as they draw,
Mm-hmm.
you making a treasure is relevant to the game.
Correct.
It puts a permanent into play.
Yep.
Now, if your opponent goes draw land, you missed your trigger. That's not miss trigger.
Really.
No, because if they don't give you an adequate amount of time to respond with your trigger, they still have you're still allowed to get that trigger. Now, if I
Okay.
go draw a card, play a land, cast a spell, and they never respond, and by the time I cast my spell, they're like, "Oh, by the way, Smothering Tithe."
If you give them time, is what you're saying. You
Correct.
can't go untap upkeep draw command tower Savala.
Correct. That
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you
I
you
got you.
have to. It's not a race. Magic. I will say, obviously, slow play is a big issue within CEDH.
Mhm.
Play responsibly, but play smart. And
Yeah.
that means for your opponent as well. You're not trying to race your opponent out of the game.
Hmm.
Mm.
Gotcha. I want to talk. I want to talk about one
Go
thing while
for it.
we're talking about
Mhm.
this. So, a common misconception for me, and I want the judge to agree or disagree. So, with say Ristic Study, Mister Kimura, Esper Sentinel, I did this last night in
Any of
this
those draw
tournament.
triggers, yeah.
Yep. So what happens is I trigger Esper Sentinel and he goes, "Are you paying for Esper Sentinel?" I go, "No, man, you can draw." He goes, "Okay, I'm gonna respond, cast this cast any mystical tutor, vampiric tutor." So you cannot do that, right? Because
Correct.
you have to respond to the trigger, right? So you don't ask the question. You go, "I have a Ristic Study trigger, hold priority," or how would that sequence go?
So
Perfect
when
the right way.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you are correct. Uh, it depends on whose turn it is for that holding priority mark because we'll go into priority a bit later. But
Yeah.
uh, if it is a spell like if I cast the creature and it's a Ristic Study, you can announce your Ristic Study trigger, and if you let it, if you attempt to let me pay for it, and I decline, that is that Ristic Study trigger resolving.
It resolves.
Anytime there is a payment that is required by an ability or a may anything like that, you or an up to like I know a lot of people in a 60 card format. uh, Fable of the Mirror Breaker has a trigger
Mm,
that is you may
good card.
discard two, draw two. What a lot of people will try and do is, are you going to discard? Yeah, okay, I'm going to flash in an Orcish Bowmaster. Can't do that.
No, that's how it
Yeah.
works. Yep.
So
Yep.
if there's a trigger that is a choice to be made, either payment,
Mm,
a may, up to anything in response to that trigger would need to be done prior to that trigger even attempting to resolve and giving the player that choice.
right.
So,
That's yeah. I like that you said that. Go ahead. I had one more question.
uh, like
Yeah.
Restic Study, if you give me the option to pay the one, and you have a Vamp Tutor, if I decline, you cannot then cast that Vamp Tutor. What you can
But what is
do,
technically the option?
so I
What
go
Ristic Study trigger? Like what
so
is?
I go Ristic Study. Ristic Study trigger. You go I pass priority on Ristic Study trigger. Because this kind of goes into that priority thing. It depends whose turn it is. Active player will always get priority first. So if it's my turn and I cast a creature, you have the Ristic Study. I gain priority on that Ristic Study first,
Yep. And then
but
it.
when it gets
Yeah.
back to you, I haven't made my decision to pay or not.
Right.
I have just passed priority on the trigger, and at that point, you would need to vamp tutor. And then if you pass, I can then choose to pay or not.
So like Orcish Bowmaster,
Mhm.
we all draw with the wheel, and then I have 21 triggers, right? Like Smothering Tithe. I draw the card first, and then the trigger goes on the stack.
Yeah, so if there is a
Yeah.
multiple draws done at once, all of those draws are done, and then any triggers that happen will go on the stack.
So it'd be a delayed trigger like Archivist of Agma.
Not delayed. It it triggers can't happen in the middle of resolving something.
Correct.
So
Yep.
it's not a delayed trigger, which is a separate thing. A delayed trigger is something that happens later in the turn, like Kiki sacrificing at the end step is a delayed
Ah,
trigger.
gotcha, gotcha, gotcha,
It
gotcha. Yeah.
A trigger just can't be put on the stack in the middle of resolving a spell or ability. A trigger can
Yeah.
only go on the stack after all state-based actions are checked, which cannot happen during the middle of a spell resolving.
Right. But after it resolves, like
After
Ob
this,
Nixilis and Ad nauseum,
yep,
right? Ad
Obnix ad
nauseum, take
nauseam.
one, take three, take
Hmm.
one, take two, take one, take one. Ob sees them, but nothing happens until everything happens, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
that is a question I actually get a lot with the Obnix Kingpin and Adnaz. It
Hmm.
will see every ping of one life loss because Adnaz life loss is done individually. However,
Hmm.
those triggers won't happen until after Adnaz has fully resolved because you can't put
Yeah.
those Obnex triggers
You
on the
can't put
stack
those on the
during
stack.
Adnaz.
Gotcha. I have one more trigger question,
Hmm.
and then I'm going to get into
Go
priority.
for it.
Timna Necrodominance.
Okay.
And then actually, I want to talk about Necropotence, but that's after that.
Hmm.
So with Necrodominance, I've been playing a lot of Roxai. Common misconception: Necrodominance is like Timna. So this is my understanding, and you're the judge. So Necrodominance. Okay, guys, it's on the end. Are you familiar with the
Yep.
card?
Hmm.
Okay, so going to end step, I don't remember the actual name of the card, but going to end step, you may pay his amount of life and then draw that many cards. So what
So
happens is
the
I go
official
to end.
sorry,
Go
the
ahead.
official wording is at the beginning of your end step, you may pay X life if you do draw X cards.
Draw that many
Yeah.
cards.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what happens? Do I go because I've seen this before? Is hey guys, is can I go to my end step? Okay, everything cool. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take 20 life and then draw these many cards. And people go Orcish Bowmaster. It's like okay, well I won't draw these cards. It's like Temna. So can you
Correct.
explain that a little bit?
So that's the same as the very similar to the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. When
Okay.
it goes into that choice of specifically with
But how do we do that?
Necrodominance, you
Yeah.
don't need to pick X
So,
until
but I'm
it's
okay.
resolving.
But how do we do it though?
So you
Okay, I'm
yeah.
going to
So
instep, and that's the only way you can interact there.
so the way that it works is when you're moving phases. This is actually a big thing I get as well. Saying I'm going to go to my next phase doesn't move you to that phase. What that says is I am passing priority on this phase. Does anybody have any response before
The
I
beginning of my end
before
step.
not even necessarily end step. I see a lot of times in combat it's like I'm going to go to combat. Going to combat is technically a shortcut to go to the beginning of declare attacks.
Mm,
If somebody wants to respond before, let's say, a uh, beginning of combat trigger,
mm.
they would need to do that in your main phase still, or else it would trigger no matter what. So a lot of people get the misconception. What's a good beginning of combat trigger? Um,
Like a Narset or something. Attack triggers,
Not attack trigger. One that
Winotas.
triggers at the beginning of combat. It doesn't need to attack yet. let's see. Let me just pull up one just so I can.
I did know they did change the rule with the extra combat steps because some cards
Yeah.
are.
So with Neheb, they redid the way. They actually rechanged it back because a lot of people were complaining about it.
Okay.
Um, usually cards would reference pre-combat main phase or post-combat main phase.
Mhm.
Uh, they changed it so that it was first main phase, second main phase, and because the way it would work is any combat after a any main phase after combat was deemed a post-combat main phase. So if you had something that triggered in your post-combat main phase, like Neheb, which was the big thing people were arguing about, uh,
Mhm.
if you had something that gave you multiple combats and another main phase after that combat, Neheb would trigger on every single one of those post-combat main phases. They tried changing
Hmm.
that so that didn't work anymore. Kind of similar to the RC, people complained about it really heavily, and they're like, "Okay, fine, that doesn't. We'll leave it." So
Mhm.
Naheb
Death
still
threats.
works that way.
Okay.
All right. So something I'm finding is like unnatural growth. Do you know that card at the beginning of each combat? Double the power and toughness of
Mm-mm.
every card you control.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So if
Yep.
you had something like that, I have
Mhm.
a 2/3. You want to bolt it.
Mhm.
If you let me go to beginning of combat, this is going to go on the stack. You could still bolt it in response, but if you wanted to do it before that trigger ever happened, you would need to do it in my main phase. If you respond in my main phase, I'm still in my main phase, even though I said I'm fine to move to combat.
Oh, and there's another rule too. Is like, say, is your second main going to instep and somebody responds,
So if they are
you go
trying,
back to second main,
correct.
right?
So if they are trying to
Yep.
respond to an end step trigger, like we'll go with Necrodominance,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you if you move into end step, Necrodominance is going to go on the stack. If
Yep.
I want to, let's say, Chain of Vapor, if I want to bounce Necrodominance so you don't get that trigger,
Yeah.
you have the ability to sorcery speed play that Necrodominance again if you have the mana.
Because it goes back to my second main.
Because you so the way it, like I said, if you pass priority moving to end step, if somebody responds, you have priority again. It
Hmm,
resets that priority you haven't passed. They responded, you're still now in your main phase with nothing on the stack, which is when you can cast a sorcery speed thing like an enchantment.
that makes sense. Okay.
And then
So,
when
okay.
Necrodominance goes to resolve, so you've allowed everybody's
So
allowed
beginning
it.
of my end step.
Yeah, so everybody's
Yep.
allowed it to move to end step.
Yep. A beginning of my end step. Do I pass priority because that's when they can do Bowmaster,
Correct.
and then
So
I pay the
you
life?
go to your end step.
Go to my end step.
Necrodominance is
Beginning of
going
my
to
end step.
go on the stack. You
Yep.
don't have to pick if you're going to do anything yet
Correct. Yep.
because it is. Let me just make sure I have the wording correct here. So, at the
It's
beginning
like
of
Temna.
your
Yeah.
end step, you may pay any amount of life.
Okay.
If you do, draw that many cards.
Hmm.
So, there is not what is called a reflexive trigger. If that if was a then or a when you do. When
That's
you
the
do
triggered
it, when
ability.
you do is the one you'll see most often. So
Whenever. Yeah.
so a big one that people see is Agatha's Soul Cauldron. It says exile a card from a graveyard. Uh, when a creature card is exiled this way, put a counter on target creature you control.
Mhm.
So if I go to target your creature in the graveyard and then it gets exiled, then there's a separate trigger that happens to put the counter on my creature.
Mm.
And that is a
Okay.
reflexive trigger off of the first trigger. There are some spells that do it too. Nothing that really sees play in
Hmm.
CDH, but
Hmm.
one of the big things actually is I see is deflecting SWAT. Is people
Ooh.
pick deflecting SWAT triggers before it
Right.
resolves. You don't
Yeah,
have
you have to
to.
swat targeting the swords, not
All you
targeting the
all
target of the
you need to
swords.
do when you're casting deflecting SWAT is name the target of the spell you're targeting, not
Correct.
what you're going to be changing that spell's target to. So
Also, Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so like swords to plowshares. If I am targeting your swords with a deflecting swat, I don't need to say what I'm changing that sword's target to until if deflecting swat resolves or
Until it
not.
resolves.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
a that's one
That's
big
good.
thing. That's one good
Yep.
big thing I see.
Mind break trap.
Yep.
How does that work?
What about it?
All of it. All of
So
it.
the
That's a
free the
fucking.
free cast part,
Oh,
that
okay.
is per opponent, not per the game. So
And
it
not storm either.
nope.
It has to be one opponent cast three.
Correct. So one opponent casts three spells. That can include the spell you're attempting to counter.
Right. Right.
So you can counter the third spell with Mind Break Trap.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
How Mind Break Trap how Mind Break Trap works is you target when you cast it all of the spells you want to get rid of.
But it says any number is the confusing part. So can you put mind break trap just on the stack if for free,
I
or if you have
believe
4 mana?
I believe you can just for fun.
It said that's the confusing part. Exile any number target of spells.
Uh, let's
And then
see.
also, how does deflecting swat and mind break trap works? See, these are all common
So
misconceptions.
you if you really wanted to, could put Mind Break Trap on the stack for nothing. It
Correct. Well, to trigger, Niv Mizzet,
Yeah,
like there's always something.
you
Yeah.
can exile anytime you see up to or any number,
Any, yeah.
you can pick 0. So
Yeah.
if you want
That's
to,
crazy because like counter spells, you can't just put a force of will on the
correct,
stack.
because
You need a target.
that doesn't have an any number, that is target.
It says counter target
hmm
spell. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So anytime you have a spell that has a specific number of targets, you
Mhm.
need to hit that many targets,
So
which
how
is
does like deflecting SWAT? So say Flusterstorm, da da blah 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 blah, pack negation. There's a big ass stack,
mhm,
and then Mind Break Trap
eat them
targeting all your
all of
spells.
them. Yeah.
So deflecting SWAT, how does that work? Does Mind Break Trap target on the stack?
Yes, Mind Break Trap targets all of the spells that you want to exile.
So deflecting SWAT, can I name? Say there's a Flusterstorm, right? I could pay for two of them, but the third one I can't pay for, so I can swat the one Mind Break Trap to that Flusterstorm. Like it's kind of a weird.
You could swat the Mind Break Trap to every Flusterstorm.
Oh,
Now, the
what?
big yeah. hmm So because deflecting swat allows you to change the targets of a spell.
I thought it was target.
No, you may choose new targets for target spell.
So you can name every single thing Mind Break Trap is hitting
hmm
if you take control of Mind Break Trap.
Yep. Not
What the
taking
fuck?
you're not taking control of it. You're just changing the targets. It is still resolving under your opponent's control.
No, but I always thought I just say Mind Break Trap targeting Ballistic Study, Force of Will, Force of Negation. I thought if I swat the trap, I just swat one of them,
No, you can swat
not
all of them.
swat every target that's already named.
Yep.
Holy shit. I did not know that.
hmm
Holy shit. I'm a good player now. God damn. All right. So let's move on. We could talk about fucking my Break Trap forever. Let's talk about priority.
Yeah. So
What's the common misconception about priority? Holding priority when it's not someone's turn, born upon a win. Let's talk about it.
big thing. Now, this is not a problem that comes up in 60 card formats. So
Right.
the common misconception is that when you cast a spell, you gain priority. That is only the case if it is your current turn.
Active player.
Yeah,
Yep.
if you are active player, the big thing you'll hear is AppNap, which is active player, non-active player. Priority goes in a circle through the active players. So if it's player one's turn, player one, two, three, four.
Mm-hmm.
If all players pass on something, then it resolves. If it
Correct.
is player
Yep.
two's turn and player one casts a spell, priority will go player two, player three, player four, player one.
Yep.
So if I want to hold priority on a spell, I can only do that if it's my turn.
Okay. I didn't know that either. I thought. Okay. I guess I did know that. Okay. Yeah. So if it's your turn
hmm
and okay, just it's my turn.
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna cast a taxing probe targeting you. Whole priority.
hmm
Casting instant, I can hold priority as much as I want to on my turn,
on your
and
turn.
nobody can do anything until I pass any type of priority.
Correct.
Correct. So I'm player one, you're player two.
Yeah.
You cast a Born Upon a Wind.
hmm
Where does priority go? It goes straight to me, so it
Straight.
doesn't go to them.
If it is your turn, it goes straight to you.
It goes straight to me,
Mhm.
and then you, and then three and four.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's wild. So on a Born Upon a Wind turn, let's talk about it.
Mhm.
So every time, so player two, player three, player four, player one, it's my turn. Honorable breach. I'm gonna respond to your honorable breach. Born Upon a Wind.
Mhm.
So it goes to me, goes to you again. Yeah, I guess you can't hold
I
priority
can't
yet.
probably
So
hold priority.
them then,
That would be the
yeah,
first time I'm gaining priority on a spell.
right, right,
So
right. But
the big thing
yeah,
with holding priority, what holding priority is, whenever you cast a spell on your turn, active player gains priority. It is usually assumed that you are going to immediately pass priority to attempt to resolve your spell, because that's the normal
mhm.
thing. If you want to break that norm, that's what holding priority is, because you have first priority. But if I just cast a creature, my normal goal is just let this resolve, so I'm not going to respond to it, which is the normal
Right.
thing.
That's yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Hey, guys, I have this cannon. Obviously, I'm not holding
I'm not
priority.
going to hold
I'm
priority
gonna
here. Do you have a response? That's the
correct,
normal way priority would
because
work.
a lot of times that doesn't happen. It's like a
Correct.
secret thing that never really
Yeah,
happens unless
the
it's like
initial
yeah,
priority on your turn usually doesn't happen. That's
yeah.
why holding priority is a thing. If you do want to hold that priority, that's why you have to announce it.
Mm,
Now,
gotcha.
when it's your turn, like the Born Upon a Wind, if I cast Born Upon a Wind on your turn, I don't get to hold priority because the first time I'm getting priority is after you.
Hmm. Yeah, that just blows my mind with like a big stacks
Mhm.
or a big stack. So that blows my mind because it's I always thought, okay, me one, you two, three, four.
Mhm.
So it's my turn. Y'all are trying to counter my spells, right? So you pass priority. Player three responds,
Yep.
right? So I thought it goes to player four, then me, then you.
Nope.
So player three responds to my if I'm it's my turn, it goes straight to me.
Yep.
So player four never gets a chance yet.
Not on that priority round, no.
Yeah, that's a common misconception with the heuristic studies because then you have triggers on the stack, and then I'm a whole priority to the trigger, and then I'm going to cast it, and then so it'll go you pass three back to one, and then I counter, then it goes to two, and then it goes back to three. So at this point, four hasn't even had priority.
Not yet. Nope.
So yeah, so what do you think as a judge about priority bullying? Is
Priority
that
bullying. Ah.
I know every judge goes.
So that's the big thing, is priority bullying doesn't exist in 1v1. The
Don't
rule
priority bully kids.
the rules of Magic as they currently stand don't have anything to say about priority bullying. It's technically legal because it doesn't exist in a 60 card format.
Exactly. That's the biggest problem with Commander.
So that, I mean, that's the whole thing with politics. There's not a rule about politics because it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a spite play or king making, because if you lose, you lose.
Right. So I can king make, I can literally be like, that's my brother.
I'm going
I'm
to
going to
let him
pack
win.
in negation. I'm going to pack in negation your counter on his honorable breach. I'm king making him. He wins the tournament, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Nope.
Can you get kicked out from the tournament? Can you, besides a
You
bad reputation, obviously?
it depends on the TO. If they have specifically implemented their own rules into the tournament,
Okay. Because
that's
that's fucking
fine.
dirty, bro. That's dirty.
But again, a lot of it comes down to, like you mentioned, reputation. If you are known for this, you're not going to have a good reputation in the community, because that's what Commander is. It's a community.
Mhm.
It is, even tournament
Yeah.
settings with money. It's a
That's
community.
how
hmm
a huge difference.
It
My
is.
brother, my older brother, he will not play online tournaments because he was like, I don't mind playing spell table with you, but online tournaments, I do not trust. The second you put a dollar sign, that's a huge
Oh yeah.
difference.
No,
All the morals go out the window.
people
But me,
do
you
a lot
can't
for
pay me.
money. hmm
Yeah, but I don't have a number to sell my soul.
No, of course.
Maybe a billion, but we'll talk about it. All right. But yeah, I don't. Hey, I'm playing in this 1,000 person tournament. right? I would rather be a man of my word. I would rather be respectful. I have a podcast. I can't just be a dick like that. But some people don't see it like that. $1,000 is $1,000. That's
It's
my travel, dog.
it's
I,
something
you
that
make a deal, and I can go against a deal, and that's not against the rules, right?
correct. It is actually something in the at SEG in Tampa.
Hmm.
They actually specifically mentioned if you make a deal with somebody, they are not obligated to hold through with that deal. It is not
Because
a rule.
politics
It
are
is
not.
not a rule that you can enforce as a judge.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. Is that going to change if CDH is a format? If
Most
Wizards
likely
takes
not.
over? Really?
Politicking is so subjective that you can't put a rule on
There's no like right or wrong way to do it, right?
No, because you can just say, "I'm not gonna politic. I'm gonna play my game. We're gonna play it the way the rules are written. You gain priority.
Mhm.
Do you have a response?"
Yeah, but I mean, Commander. I play Commander. You know, it's all about having fun and your charisma and
Which is
talking. And
where
I hate people are like, just play your spell. So you're just gonna be a chair. You're gonna be the fourth chair just sitting there. Like that's
it
we're not in 1v1,
it is a
right?
way to play the game as much as it is to be that charismatic, "I'm gonna try and politic everything."
Hmm.
So that's where it
Yeah.
comes down to what is considered a politic versus what is just good game sense.
Hmm.
Because that's another thing, in Magic, in a competitive setting, if you cast a spell, you've cast the spell. You can't take that back once information is gained. Which
Well, didn't that rule change though?
so that is
We think politic. We could take it off the stack. What?
if Commander Top Deck has implemented a specific thing that information gained from opponents that are not the affected opponent can be considered. It's not
Because I can reveal information. I can show
correct.
you guys, hey, I have a Pagination in my hand. That's on me.
Correct. It
Yeah.
it in so if I'm playing 1v1 against you, if I go
Mhm.
I'm going to cast this spell and you go, "Okay, that's fine." I go, "Actually, hold on a minute. You've given me information that it was going to resolve. So
So you can't do
I
that.
can't
So
take that
then
back.
spell
I
resolves.
can't take that
Spell
back."
resolves.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Commander, if I go, I'm going to Swords to Plowshares that card. And then player 1
You
and
haven't really paid
yeah,
mana. You haven't
player
put it on
3
this.
and 4 are
Yeah.
like, "Wait. It'd probably be better if you target that instead."
Yeah.
Perfectly allowed.
Yeah. But what if I go Path to Exile, targeting Selvala?
Mhm.
And then guy goes, whoa, 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 whoa. We lose if you pack those Savala. I've already paid the mana. I've already announced the target. Spell is on the stack. What do we do? If I go, you know what, you're right, I'll take it off. Does the Savala player go, nah, man, you casted it?
That would be allowed because the information was not gained outside of the opponent giving some game sense. But it
Okay.
really at that point it really comes down to a basis. It's not a flat rule. It comes down to a case by case.
Mm.
Which
Okay. Well, the judge would have to come over
kind of
and
sit
talk
through,
about
talk
it. And
through what was discussed, what was the chain of events that happened here. A lot of the judge calls that I get,
gotcha.
especially when I have to like work back in a turn, it's a lot of discussing between the players in a commander event. In a 1v1, it's pretty simple. There's usually a very clear
Yeah.
chain of events that happened. Commander has a lot more talking that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't need
I
to
gotcha.
convince
And
my
then,
opponent in a
yeah.
1v1 setting on if I'm allowed to kill their creature or not.
Right, right. But that's why I like Commander.
Hmm.
But so also with that is I heard about the shut up rule. If say me and you are, we play Commander,
Hmm.
whatever, this player two's new, player three's new, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking for 5-10 minutes, oh, what player two should do, but it's their turn. So can't player two be like, hey guys, I'm just gonna play my spells. Can you please be quiet? Right. And then in a
Player,
respectfully way, he can ask you guys to be quiet, right? And you have to be quiet.
even the other player can ask for that.
Oh, okay. So, hey guys, stop yapping. I'm not listening to you. You're not going to Jedi mind trick me. I'm playing my spells. And we have to be like, okay.
Yeah, so if you're allowed to give an input on a spell, but
Yeah.
delaying the game and holding up
For 5-10
to have a
minutes.
discussion
Yeah.
about it, even so, if me and you were player 1, 2, 3 is trying to decide what he wants to target on four's board.
Mhm.
4 can be like, "Look, let him do his game."
Really?
Mhm.
Well, how long though? After a minute or
It
two of
it
talk, or just hey guys, don't say anything, let him do his
it's
game.
not even don't say anything, it's this game needs to progress. So
Right.
it comes
Okay.
down to a kinda slow play situation because
Okay.
there is no game actions being taken. And in a timed
Right.
format,
But what I'm saying is, how long can they talk about it?
there isn't
30 seconds, 10 seconds,
that's
a
the thing
minute,
is
three
if
minutes?
there's
Right.
a genuine conversation going on where there's a actual discussion, that can
Mhm.
go on for a reasonable amount of time, probably. I mean, there's not a hard set time frame, but, a discussion can be a minute, no issue.
Yeah, yeah. 10 minutes and we
I
haven't done
if
anything.
you if
Yeah,
you're going even above 4 or 5 minutes without doing anything,
that's
yeah,
ridiculous. Yeah, yeah.
and
Make a decision, put an action on the yeah.
slow play is one of the big things. I know, we were probably gonna go into slow play on its own thing, but
Yeah, I
slow
wanna talk about slow play, and then I wanna
yeah.
talk about the draw controversy.
So
We're almost
slow
at an hour already.
yeah, so slow play really comes down to that fact of there isn't a set time frame. If you have multiple decisions to make, you're
Mhm.
allowed to think. The
Okay.
big basis that I do as a judge, and I know a lot of judges do. First off, I don't know if somebody's slow playing unless you call me over. If you're in a tournament and you are thinking your opponent is slow playing, call the judge over. I can't help if you don't tell me.
Mm. I don't wanna be a dick, though.
It's not necessarily being a dick. It's I want the game state to progress in a timely fashion.
Okay.
And
I wanna be able to put anyone on the stack. There's 5 minutes left.
there's
He
5
hasn't done
minutes left.
anything.
I would
Yeah.
like this game to proceed in a timely fashion.
Mhm.
So the big thing as a judge, what they'll do is if I can walk over, look at your hand, and make an informed decision, you probably have about 20 seconds past that before it's going to be slow play.
Mm. Okay.
That's just a personal thing. I know a few other judges who do that. The big thing is if you want one, have a very clear line of play. You have one card in hand, you can cast one spell. And obviously, if it's a tutor or something, that's a bit different story. If I have a creature in my hand and I'm sitting here deciding to cast my creature or not, you have 30 seconds to make that decision. If
And
you
then what
drew a
happens if they don't? What happens if they get slow play? You pass
so
priority?
so slow playing is a warning to start. It's a very basic verbal warning. It doesn't even count as a gameplay error, which is where you normally
Mm.
get your warnings. Where if you get 3 warnings, that's your turn skip, and in Commander, if you get 4, it's a game loss.
Okay.
Those are your game rule violations. Those are your missed detrimental triggers. Those are your basic stuff you'll get warnings for. That's a whole
Mhm.
different topic on what counts as a GRV versus not. But
Mhm.
slow play, the second time is going to be an official warning, and by
Mhm.
that time, I'm standing there, or the judge is standing there, and making sure that you're following through on your turn. And in a multi-round event, which pretty much every tournament setting of Magic will be a multi-round event, if
Mhm.
it's getting to be a constant issue, you will get penalized for it.
Even in different rounds.
Yep. Because
Say in round 1 and then round 4, I'm doing the same
yep.
thing because I remember from round 1. Okay.
Yep, because that applies to even basic warnings through if you're at an RCQ or something for modern. If you get a warning
Mhm.
in round 1,
I carry
that warning sticks
to the
the
end of the
entire
tournament.
tournament. You have
Gotcha.
if you have 3 warnings in a 1v1 format, it's a game loss. If you have 3 warnings in Commander, it's a turn skip. If you have
Mhm.
4 warnings in a 1v1, it's a match loss. If you have 4 in Commander, it's a game loss, which is effectively a match loss.
Mhm.
And if you have 5, it's a disqualification.
So, isn't there? two or three different rulings. Like I know in the invitational, they were doing like the higher ruling where like they weren't playing no games. There
So
was
that's the
no,
difference
oh, I
between
forgot to discard. Yeah, what's that called again?
competitive REL and pro REL.
Oh, okay, so competitive REL is what you're talking about.
Correct.
Pro is like
So the
the Pro
the
Tour
yeah,
stuff like
the
that.
distinction between it is regular REL, you are not expected to understand interactions and rules of the cards you're playing.
Mm,
You can understand them, you're not expected as a player. That's for draft, for limited, sealed pre-releases, that
Commander, yeah.
casual commander, that sort of stuff. Competitive REL is you are meant to understand what you're playing.
Okay,
You don't need to know every rule. You need to have a functional understanding of what you're playing.
okay,
Pro
makes sense.
REL is you understand an effective all of the interactions that your deck can produce, including the majority of what your opponents will be playing.
Okay, majority. Okay.
Obviously, if you're running into some fringe stuff, you may not be expected to remember everything, but as a pro level player, you're expected to at least make a informed decision about it. And if you
Mm,
need a judge, you can call over a judge. That's where you get pro tours, the world championship series, that sort of stuff.
mhm.
Those are
And
the
that's a whole nother ball game.
correct. Those are the hey, you are here probably paying to either travel for this. You need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a whole nother
That
ball
was
game.
why I'm not sure if you followed Modern at all during the Modern Pro Tour. There were some
Mm-mm.
issues that shouldn't have been a disqualification actually, but became a disqualification because it was pro level.
Mm. Well, I know I don't really follow modern. My brother does, but I know the Invitational, the CDH Invitational that happened. This guy, he won Cowtown. He like gave everybody envelopes and he did like letters, and I guess in the letter they could someone could have took it as offensive, but it wasn't offensive. But somebody could have took it as offensive,
Mhm.
so he got disqualified
Yeah,
because they're at the pro
when it comes
shit.
to uh what's called UC, which is unsportsmanlike conduct,
Hmm.
the higher you go, much more strict it gets. Like
Yeah,
at Comp REL, you need to be mindful of people's pronouns. You need to be mindful of what words you're saying, that sort of stuff. Does not matter what you think about it. If you're agreeing to play in the tournament, you're agreeing to follow by that
you're
rule
agreeing
set.
to follow the rules.
Hmm.
I 100% agree. I don't care that you think that having three dicks is weird. You should not say that. You
Correct.
should not call
If
somebody a
Yeah,
name.
if you have
No.
an issue with the tournament setting, then you don't get to play in the tournament. You're agreeing to, at the
Yeah.
time of the tournament, put aside whatever differences you may have and follow the
Mhm.
rules of the tournament.
I have a I have a funny story. So Looted Satellite, he's statistically the best CDH player right now, and I
I
don't
beat
know.
him, by the way.
So, oh yeah, so he's really cool. He's been on the
He's
podcast. He's
great.
gonna be
Love
on
him.
again.
Max is a great
So,
guy.
well, for a while he had a bad rep of being aggressive. So then he stopped going to tournaments. Anyway, so the 5K that we went to in Tampa.
Hmm.
So he told me he's on Nadu. He was kicking ass, right?
Yep.
This guy next to him, I'm literally with Ian watching his pod. This guy next to Wounded looks at him and goes, "You're a professional cunt."
Yeah. He got disqualified for that.
The guy across from him was like, what?
Yep.
Judge Wounded didn't say anything because of his background, because of
Yep.
people don't want, hey, I'm not fighting with this guy, whatever. I thought it was fucking hilarious. If somebody calls me a professional cunt, I'm laughing in their
Of
face.
course. But at that
But
point,
in a tournament
you're at a
setting, you
tournament.
cannot
Nope.
do that.
And
Yeah.
it was funny because that tournament was actually, for some reason, being ran at what was called regular plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
I That doesn't
It
exist.
was running through Top Deck, but it wasn't Top Deck.
It
It
was an
was
official Wizard
Wizards.
sponsored event,
Yeah.
even though it was ran through Top Deck's network
Software. Yeah.
software. Yeah,
Yeah. Command Tower. Yeah.
yeah. So Yeah, he got disqualified for that. So
After the fact, they finished their game,
yeah,
but they did talk to him after the
yeah,
yeah. That shit was wild to me.
he was originally just getting a UC minor warning, and then it got
Dude, that's
discussed
crazy.
by the
That's
judges,
crazy,
and
bro.
it became a disqualification. Yeah.
That's wild. That's and anyways, so fuck, it's already been an hour. So last thing, I've got to talk about this. I literally ran into this last night. I'm about to go to the Boyle, the biggest CDH tournament ever.
Hmm.
Got to talk to you about it. The draw controversy.
Yep.
That was one of the things why the RC was a thing, and then it blew up, and then death threats, and then Wizards took over. It was the bans, it was the first turn if they should draw or not, and the draw controversy. Do you think, as a judge, it should change? Because I don't think, like my brother said this earlier to ask you. He said, I don't think so. Say it's not time.
Hmm.
Say we're 40 minutes in. I don't think someone should go pack a negation on your win con. You don't win. Guys, I lose here. I can't pay for my pack. Are we good to draw if I cast this? And then everybody draws. I don't think intentionally drawing is good for the format. But in the judge's eyes, what do you think about it? Give me your thoughts.
So intentional drawing exists in any form of a competitive setting. It's
Mm-hmm.
usually a way to guarantee both players in a 1v1 setting have a better standing.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to a pod, that can be done. So say you're all winners of a few points, you're all at 10 points, whatever. You
Whatever.
can
Yeah.
intentionally draw. That is allowed. You can intentionally draw at any point within a match that hasn't finished.
That sucks.
That is the official rule on it. Now,
Right.
at what point is that spite or king making or anything like that? That comes down to the politics side, which,
Another thing I want to cut you off and then I'm gonna let
yeah,
you
go for it.
finish is so say all three of us qualify top 16
Hmm.
except the fourth guy. Fourth guy has a win and in.
Hmm.
He doesn't want to draw.
Yeah.
So what happens is if that fourth guy is gone,
Hmm.
if he's dead or whatever in that game, he can no longer agree to a draw. So the second that guy dies, those three can agree to ID, and that is fucked up. So is there any way we can change that? And go ahead, continue with your.
At that point, the only way you could change a rule is that all four players within a pod would need to agree to a draw,
Yeah,
including
but
players that are currently eliminated from the game being played.
they're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed. Well, top deck, they're not allowed to put their input. They can
They
sit there. They
can't
can watch. They can't
comment
say anything.
on current game state.
Right.
They would theoretically be allowed to agree to a draw or not still, because
Okay.
it's
Well, that's just
that's
that's
that
just
that
not what
yeah, that
that's not
become
what I happened to CCS.
no, of course, that there isn't a rule for that is the issue. But they
That's what
could
I'm
they
asking.
could implement a
That's on the
rule.
TO.
They could
Okay.
implement a rule that would be all players in a pod need to agree to a draw, including players currently eliminated.
Yeah, but then being eliminated changes their mind,
They may agree to a draw at
right?
that point, yeah, because then it would guarantee a point.
Right. I
It
think
comes
it
down
should
to
be
that.
the beginning of the round. Do you guys want to draw yes or no? No, we're playing the game. Let's play to the game as higher abilities. I
That
played a game
is
last. Go ahead.
that's not an incorrect way to go about it. You're correct.
Mhm.
That could be a decision to be made as a rule as well. That you have before round time starts to agree to an intentional draw or not.
Mhm.
One thing in the 1v1 format is you can't wait for other games to finish to make your decision.
Mm.
Like say
Right.
a a table underneath me, if one person wins, I can draw in and I'm guaranteed top 8. If the other person wins, I'm not guaranteed. So I'm just going to sit here and debate until that game finishes.
You can't do that.
Can't do that.
So what came up was this. Okay, so player three Magda was had the board.
Hmm.
They were winning if they untapped,
Sure.
right? So say player one, two, three, four. Player
Hmm.
four is irrelevant. So player three Magda, past turn, we stopped them, but they definitely probably we think I don't think they ended up going for a win or could have won, but in our minds, they won. Their board state was insane.
Mhm.
So Roxai was this player, right? So this player was like, okay, I have a tutor. What do I do here? And then, so at that point, Roxai was like, hey man, I could probably go for a win here. But Magda wins, and I'm probably gonna get stopped. I'm gonna go for the draw because we're in league. Draw is way better than a loss.
Mhm.
But Magda is like, how come outside stuff affects us from playing the game and the outcome of the game? We should be able to play to our wins in the game. And that's what my brother Magda's situation is. Hey man, don't I think it was to blow up the collect roof. So Rockside went off, but they cast a breach, but they could have went for it, but they did an overload vandal blast with the Mike'son's Gardens out, so it blew up the board and they wanted to draw. But Magda was like, hey, I could stop this. You let me stop this. He's like, no, because I think you're going to win. And Magda's like, I'm not going to win, but I think you're going to win. So I'm not going to do it. So then they drew, and Magda was just like, fuck. Like, I have to draw here because now all our shit's blown up. So that, as a judge, I have to get your opinion on that. Do you think they're ever going to fix that? You think there's any way to fix that? Is it just is what it is?
Under current rule set, no. If they add
Okay.
rules that can specifically target politicking, because that's
Mhm.
effectively what that is, even though it's deciding the game, it's still politics.
Outside information, though.
It
Hey, I have this many points I want to draw, and Magda needs to win. I don't care about that. I'm going for the draw.
that
That's not fair. I think you should play the game.
that's points in a tournament are pretty much, or a league are pretty much always how draws are decided. Intentional draws are decided. Hey, we're both locked in into top 8 if we draw because we'll both go to 10. We'll both go to 11 points. So
Right.
it's not that outside information is not allowed. The thing that's not allowed is coercing, for one. You can't offer uh, anything outside of the tournament. Like, hey, I'll give you
Mhm.
$10 if you concede.
Right. No, I get that. But isn't that a little bit a coercing of, hey, man, me and you want to draw?
Mhm.
Let's blow out these two players. That guy's out of the game. Let's blow out this guy so we can draw and we're in. Isn't that a little bit of, what's the word? Not coercing. I don't remember the word, but like
Colluding?
scheming. Yeah, like scheming against them. I don't know. I just
It's
feel like you're playing with the rules a little bit there.
you are, and you could,
Collusion. That's
yeah,
the word I'm
yeah,
looking for.
it could be seen as collusion. The issue is under the IPG, collusion doesn't really exist anymore. It's now bribery because again, the
Mhm.
IPG is designed for a two-player format.
Correct. So let's circle back to that. Are they going to make CDH rules? Is that
It's
going to be another rule book? Is
they
that in
do
the
there is
future?
a rule book that what you would need there is a rule thing for multiplayer formats where Commander falls under. It's the I believe the 800s in the CR. The thing it would need is an infraction procedure guide, the IPG. It would need a specific IPG like Top Deck's IPG addendum that they added where it
Hmm.
clearly defines if there's any difference in penalties for Commander because it's a best of one format.
Hmm.
If there's any rules specifying about drawing, and like you were saying, if a player's knocked out, do they get a vote in that sort of stuff. It would
Hmm.
need to, if they are adding it for king making, for spite plays, for
Yeah, are they going to do that? Is what I'm saying. Is
it's
that in the judge community? Are you guys working on that? Is that a thing that we want to do?
I
I just feel like CDH is a redheaded stepchild, and I don't think it's fair for rules like that because 60 card 1v1, they have rules in place and it's working.
yeah. So that's the big thing is Magic as it is currently designed for the rules wise doesn't
Mhm.
fit Commander. So if they were going to make,
The most popular format
of course, yeah, it's the most popular format. It's the best way that
by far.
that they make money by
By far.
far.
It's
It's
not
how
even
most
close.
people get into Magic by far.
Yeah,
It's also the most casual format.
correct. It is a casual format. It was
So
designed
if they
right.
are going to try and design CDH as an official format that they're bringing into the IPG,
Hmm.
they are going to need to make an entire new IPG for it or an addendum to add to the current one.
Okay, so but that goes with what you said earlier is I think that's going to be hand in
I
hand,
think
right? Like
they'll do
if
it.
CDH is his own format, they have to
If
do that.
correct.
They
That's
have
yeah.
to
If
go these because they technically have commander rules, 21 commander damage, yada yada. If you
yeah,
literally
that's
go to
that that they
wizards.com and look at commander rules,
that
it's
is
like
the
5
800.
sentences.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
800 rules.
Yeah. If you want to send me any of the rules, I can put it while we're talking
Yeah,
on the
sure.
thing,
Hmm.
whatever later. But yeah, so that's kind of the hard thing, which I understand, right? I get so I pretty much got the story of Sheldon Menery. He was a judge, and with his judge buddies, he wanted to play a longer format so they can drink wine and play Magic for 4 or 5 hours. That is how Commander got designed. So I understand that part, but you can't tell me nobody was like, "Hey, maybe somebody's going to want to try to win as fast as they can against Commander format."
Of course.
So I just hate that, we're just kind of get a, you know what, you're right. We understand what you're saying, but there's nothing we can do about it. And that part sucks. I think they have to do something with the draws and the turn order. It's statistically out of 100 games, the player in seat one, 10% wins more than player in last seat, only because they can draw. Well, not only, but Dockside was the only card that helped, right? So I think if you take away that draw or take away something from the first seat to level it out, just like 1v1, it would change.
So the only reason that they draw, and this is actually specified within the rules, it is not a commander only thing that player one draws. Player one will draw in any format that is a best of one.
What other format is there?
Two-headed giant.
Oh,
Oh, no, sorry,
okay.
sorry. Mulligan is you get a free mulligan in best of one. Multiplayer specifically is player one draws.
Play. Okay, yeah, 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 yeah,
Multiplayer
yeah.
specifically. Sorry, the free mulligan is best of one rule.
Yeah, but two-headed giant and CDH, that's not even the same thing.
No, very
That's not
different.
even
Very
close to.
different.
I feel you had. That's like saying. So, I don't really know this. So, like, say modern and standard, or
Hmm.
modern and legacy. Isn't that the same exact rules for both of those?
Yeah, just different ban lists. Hmm.
Correct. So I feel like with CDH, because it's not a 1v1, it's not like all the other ones, it is different.
Hmm.
There's not one other thing like it.
No,
Two-headed giant's the closest, and it's not even
and that
in the same realm.
that you're yeah, just because it's four players, that's the closest, and it's a best of one format.
That doesn't matter.
That's about all that they are because you
Okay.
share a life total. You're not opponents with all players. Personally, one of
Mhm.
my favorite ways to play commander is two-headed giant commander.
I've never played.
It
Me
is
and my brother were talking
it is
about
one
that.
of
How
my
we
favorite
haven't
ways.
done that yet.
It's
Yeah.
two-headed CDH is one of my favorite
I heard
plays to
two-headed
play.
giant fun if you like draft it, like that's fun. But like an actual, I build a commander to go with your commander. I've never done that before. That sounds like a
It
blast. But
is
like,
I have heard from many players one of the most fun ways of playing Magic.
can you imagine just fucking, all right, you got mono green, you got that stuff. I'm gonna do Azorius control. All right, cool.
That's literally
Like,
what I do.
ugh,
I
gross.
play my
Yeah, I'm gonna
mono
let you do
green.
your thing. Yeah,
I play my mono green. My partner plays I'm going to counter
control.
everything that they attempt
Yeah.
to stop you with.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you win us the game, and I'm gonna stop them from stopping you from winning.
The usual pairings that I see are one turbo deck, one control deck, or two mid-range decks.
Yeah, I see that. All right, so two more things. We're
Mhm.
running out of time. Two more things I want to talk about. Would you recommend somebody being a judge, and does being a judge make you a better CDH player?
If you have that love for the rules, I mean, if you enjoy understanding why something works the way it does, I think judging is great. You can even go through the free part of the judge course just if you want a better understanding of the rules. I
Okay.
recommend anybody doing that. The actual judging, running events, things like that. It is work. I mean, it is a job. Obviously, it's a fun job. You get to mess around. You get to have fun, but you do need to. You are putting people's money in your rulings. You need to make sure you're doing it right and following the rules, that sort of stuff. It is something you need to learn and be good at. I mean, bad judges, you'll hear stories about it. It's not fun. People don't like it.
Yeah,
I try
bad
and be
bad
the
judge
best. I
sucks.
try and be the best judge that I can be.
Yeah, I mean, you're the
But
goat for sure.
um, learning rules can 100% help you in CDH. even if you're not a judge. I have had many times where I've known how an interaction would work, and it played into my favor because of that.
Mhm.
Because somebody didn't understand how it works, and as a player, I don't need to explain how your interaction is going to work.
And that's perfectly fine in the rule book.
Yep, 100%. I do
I
not.
don't have to tell you what your cards do.
Correct. I don't need. I only need to tell you what my cards do.
My cards do,
If
if you
it
ask me.
if it's a free information, and you specifically ask me.
Yeah, but like you can't go. I'm just play this land. Well, what land you play,
Correct.
right? I see
That's
that a lot.
the name of
Oh, that was a
the name
yeah.
of the land is free information. The oracle
Right,
text
but
of
you don't
that
have to
card.
announce it, right? You just go,
Uh,
hey man, play this
I
land, tap
don't
this,
have to
like this.
physically announce it, but if I'm asked, I have to reveal it.
But you
Obviously,
should.
obviously, I can't
Yeah.
hide it either. Like I can't have my hand over. It's like you don't get to see this.
You
But
can't hide it under
yeah,
your other
no,
lands.
you're
Yeah.
never allowed to hide a card that you're playing. We're not playing with Cheaty Face, the silver border card.
That's so funny. Last thing before I let you go,
Yeah.
man. Let's talk about Savala. I got Higher on here, and he was talking about that was his first big deck. How's Savala after post ban? And do you recommend that deck to
Uh,
anybody?
much better post ban. Yeah, I mean I lost two cards that only mattered if they were in my opening hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been playing that deck since I started playing Commander in back in 2020, and it is a deck that I personally love, of course. However, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's a deck for everybody. There's a lot of
Mono green.
there's a lot of weird interactions. There's a
Yeah.
lot of random lines that I go through. But if you
Yeah.
enjoy that, if you enjoy figuring out
A puzzle.
a puzzle, I mean, I
Savala's cracked in fucking Sisay.
oh yeah, no, Saval is a great card. I mean, it's in
Yeah.
Sisay, it's in Kinnan. Some lists play it. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a great
Green
card.
decks.
I I wrote a whole primer on it. It's something that I have a passion
Yeah.
on. I
I'll put
know.
your deck list in the description.
Yep. I it's definitely something that is not easy to just pick up and pilot. But if you have a love for the deck, it's a very fun deck, and it's always fun for people not to know what I'm doing. I've had
Yeah, but I
somebody
just feel like good.
I've had somebody oppo me when I'm going to tutor, and they're like, I don't know what to take. You're playing in Najila or something, or anything with a dockside before ban. It's like you tutor for a creature. I'm probably just gonna take your dockside. Me, it's
Yeah.
like I don't know what to grab. There's just some random 6-drop creature in this deck.
Yeah, you got the what's that 1 mana 15 power guy?
Oh, Phyrexian
The
Dreadnought,
best card in your deck?
my 1 mana 12/12.
Yeah, I love the why is he playing that? I'm a whole priority on the Savala trigger.
Don't worry,
Tap.
I'm gonna just do the best ritual in Magic.
What is that? A one?
It's
So
2 mana,
two
draw a
mana
card.
12?
It's 2 mana, draw a card, make 12 mana.
Oh, that's the most missteppable thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, no, I've had it mental misstepped quite a few times. It's not fun.
Oh yeah, no politics here. Shut the fuck up, Savala. I'm middle missing the fuck. I only have 12 mana.
It's so
Savala.
fun to be like, hey, I'm gonna finale for one. What are you gonna grab? An Allosaurus Shepherd? Yeah, something like that.
Birds. Yeah.
It's like, what are you
Don't
gonna
worry
grab?
about
An
it.
elf? Yeah.
Sure. Whatever you want to call it.
Anyway,
And then you
12,
just
12.
win the game.
No,
Yeah,
I
you
think one of
just
my
win the
favorite
game.
things is when somebody drops a Torpor Orb.
Oh, you
Because,
don't care about that.
well, no, because Dreadnought doesn't die then.
Oh, it doesn't die.
For anybody who doesn't know, Phyrexian Dreadnought is a 1 mana 12/12 that when it enters the battlefield, you need to sacrifice it or sacrifice 12 or more powers worth of creature.
Or
So
it goes to the graveyard.
yeah, so either you can sacrifice it, which is what normally happens. It's just you play it, it
One
sacrifices.
mana.
Or if
Yep.
you want to keep it, you can sacrifice 12 total power among other creatures. Very rarely have ever done that. Have
It's
done it
probably come
before,
up. Maybe. Yeah.
maybe twice.
Yeah.
I've used it to
No.
sack my entire board in response to a Genesis wave putting my whole board out into the graveyard, so I don't lose from drawing cards because I
Okay.
endurance everything back into my deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I played with you once.
It's
That's
a
so much
weird
fun.
line, definitely not something I
After this,
normally go for,
yeah,
but whatever.
after after this tournament, I drew with the top four, and then my brother drew with the second 1 through 8, and then me, you, my brother, and the owner were like, "Dude, we got to get a game in." We literally played ante. The cards that I traded into the guy to the owner, put it in there, and I put all the Modern Horizons 3 cards that I got in there. You put some Judge promos that I still have in there, and we had a fucking blast. And I was like, I didn't realize Savala was this fucking interactive. And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
bitch.
No,
It's so interactive.
it's fun
It was your
because
game to lose.
yeah,
Yeah.
people don't know that like, hey, I'm gonna stop you from winning in mono green. I'm going to endurance you. I'll blow up your breach. I'll make you draw a
Mhm.
card from an empty library. If you
Yeah.
try to Thassa's Oracle, people don't think that I can do that. I'm gonna do it.
Endurance is the bane of my existence.
I love
I
endurance.
always
I
lose to
love
fucking endurance, and I hate that fucking card because I'm like, there's nothing they. I have all the backups. Everything resolves. My pack negation resolve. All my counter magic. I win with Oracle, and they go, "Yeah, console's good." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." I win here, and they're like, "No, no, no, I got endurance."
It's like how many cards you got in your graveyard? More than two? Great.
Yeah, it's fucking gross. It's
I
so
think
bad.
one of my favorite things you're it's like people don't know what I'm doing, and then I get to Emerald Charm a Tivit out of the air and block it with a 6/6. People
Emerald
don't even know
Charm.
what Emerald Charm does.
I'll put it on the thing. Or that 4 man enchantment that we're talking about the other day.
Oh yeah, Titania Song.
Oh my! I'm gonna put it right here in the middle.
Titania Song.
Holy shit!
You're gonna
Go
even
ahead and
need to
remove
put
it. I still
yeah,
got it,
you're
dog.
gonna need to even put Oracle text because the the card doesn't even explain what it does right.
Yeah, yeah, because the Oracle.
I had that
So
happen in I actually played a tournament last week, 2 weeks ago. I won.
yeah, we
Um,
can have it go. Yeah.
I won the Urza Saga with it, and I played Titania Song, and it was MVP. Like Kinnan was like, "All right, I'm gonna cast the Tidespot Tyrant and bounce the Titania Song." I was like, "Okay, that's fine." They go, "All right, cool. Activate my Basalt Monolith." I'm like, "That's a 3/3."
Until in a turn.
Until the next turn, and they're like, "But I bounced it." I'm like, "I want you to read the last line of this card."
Why? Why does that card say
I
that?
have absolutely no idea.
And then I was like, "Oh, was it like from fucking the dark or something?" And
It's
I'm like,
from
"Oh, that's $1,000 card." You're like 28 cents.
it's from Antiquities is the first printing.
Antiquities. 28 cents, dog. I baked it. I was in my bulk. I got it.
I was literally going through revised bulk and found it.
Oh, I was gonna say, how'd you find that card? And you really want to wait a week to get that in the mail? It's
N
28 cents.
I was going through one of my buddies, he has a full set of revised that he was selling, and he's like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
these are the bulk cards." I was like, "Ooh, look, it's a Titania Song. I've been looking for that."
Ooh, nice. I'm gonna win a tournament real quick with it.
The MVP because it also kills all treasures, it kills, any 0 drop rocks, anything like that, so
Mhm.
it's great.
I'm working on a green food chain deck, and I was looking at that card. I'm
Mono
not
green
sure if
food
I'm there
chain,
yet.
what, with just Scourge?
No, not mono green. It's gonna have green in it.
Okay.
I'm looking at a gruel deck. There's a couple green decks I'm messing with. I don't really know. I'm cooking. I'm cooking, but I'm looking at that card since I got with you, and I'm just like,
I
man,
mean,
it's good.
if you're going for a slower Staxier deck and
Yeah.
you're not reliant on artifacts, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing a collector roof,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
Just slam it in the
I
collector
mean,
roof
the
deck.
deck that I won with was playing Collector Oof, Titania Song, and Null Rod.
No, Rod. As a Grixis player, fuck you. Respectfully.
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, I play all 3 of those cards and, like, 8 different ways of removing artifacts or enchantments.
Who hurt you?
Grixis players.
I, I understand, but all right, man. It's been an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. You got anything you want to plug or anything?
No, I mean, and I'm down to hop on here again if anybody wants to like send in questions or interactions or anything that they want to get answers to. I'd be happy to.
Yep.
Even if you send them to me beforehand, I can come in with answers and or go
Hmm.
through the process of how I even find answers to rules. If
Yeah.
that would be
And
something that
he's a judge in my Discord. If you guys are in the
I
Discord,
am judge.
you just
I
hashtag judge.
hashtag judge.
He's
I'll
got
pop up Rustman 127.
Russ, man. Oh, that's so convenient.
Yeah,
That's so convenient. I was like, "Hey guys, anybody got any judge questions?" Actually, I do. I'm asking random questions that are irrelevant. And I'm like,
I
"Hey man,
can
what
tell
about
you,
this?"
I get the most random judge calls pinged at me in Discord. It's great. I love answering them because some of them actually make me
Yeah.
do digging.
I was gonna say, does one ever stump you? Are you ever like, "Huh, I never thought of it like that."
There are some that are so obscure. It's like, hey, what happens if I chain these exact 8 cards together? I'm like, are you actually gonna do it?
Yeah. Are you in a game right now? Like,
It's like if you have an active game and you're like, hey, how does this work? I'll happily look into the rules. If you're starting to tell me it's like, hey, if I'm using Undiscovered Paradise with Quest for Renewal and Archmage's Charm with Phylactery Lich to try and get cast a Planglacial Worm during my untap step, can I do that? I'm like,
are you asking me because you're brewing a fucking deck?
it's
Don't
like
brew that deck.
it's like what are you doing that you need the answer to this? Most
I'll
of the
give that
time,
to you.
nothing. I
Yeah,
think one
most
of
of that.
the
Yeah, together this deck.
I think one of the only ones that's recently gotten me to think was the new Kaido, the one that's a creature if it is your turn and it has Planeswalker, if it has loyalty counters on it from Duskmourn.
Hmm.
It's
I
the
was thinking
new
of the green creature.
oh no, the new it's the new
Kona.
it's
That's what I
the
was thinking
yeah,
of.
it's the new
That
Kaido
card's busted.
from it's the new Planeswalker from Duskmourn.
I know what you're talking about. In Eureka. Eureka plays it.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
ninja on your turn, that card.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It if you have a solemnity out which says creatures can't get counters, I was asked if I have a solemnity and I play Kaido, does it enter with
Mhm.
counters? Because it would be a creature.
Yes.
It would, because when it's looking to see if it will enter with counters, it is a planeswalker. It's not a creature yet.
Mm. It's kind of like the gods, right? I'm casting the Xenaghost. It's a creature on the stack, but the second it resolves, it's not a creature because I don't have devotion, right?
There's actually some even really interesting things with devotion gods. So, Authority of the Consuls, if you want to pop it up, it says,
I will.
yeah, uh, creatures enter the battlefield tapped that your opponents control. And it
Mhm.
also says, uh, when a creature enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, you gain a life.
Mhm.
So if you control that card and I play a devotion god,
Mhm.
if it would give itself the devotion to be a creature, so say it's Heliod, I have 4 white devotion.
Mhm.
What happens is something called the look ahead, which it will look to see how it would exist on the battlefield. However, it doesn't count its own devotion into that count. It just looks at what is on the battlefield now.
Mhm.
So it would be 4. That means my Heliod will not enter tapped because it's not a creature entering the battlefield.
Mm.
But
So then devotion kicks in after the
and it
look.
will enter as a creature then, and you'll gain the life.
Jesus Christ, I hope that never comes up.
So my creature won't be tapped, but you'll gain the life.
Whatever. I don't care. Gain the life. Fuck.
All right. Well, it was great being on here with you.
It's funny. Yeah. Oh, I got one more question. One
Yeah.
more judge
What's up?
question. The new Kona, you know what I'm talking about? The three green.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I'll have to look up the actual text, but I think it says going.
Survivor, if it is tapped in your second main
Yeah.
phase, you may put a permanent from your hand into play.
So this came up the other day. So does that can you respond to that trigger? Does that have to be tapped going into the second main?
Yes, it has to be tapped basically before combat ends. That's the last time it could get tapped.
Can we talk about the phases for a second?
Sure. So,
Untap, upkeep, draw.
so that is your beginning phase.
Okay.
Then you have steps within phases,
Yeah.
which is your untap step, your
Uh,
upkeep, and your draw
Yeah,
step.
but you can't respond to untap, I thought.
You can't, but that's still a phase within Magic. There are some
God.
phases that you don't gain priority in.
Clean up,
Cleanup and
untap.
untap.
Yeah.
unless certain cases with cleanup, but the majority you don't.
Unless like Necropotence triggers on the
Unless
instep. Yep.
something in cleanup causes a trigger to happen.
I learned that playing Roxai.
Yeah,
Because like silence effect. So silence is till end of turn.
correct.
So
Any end of
cleanup, I'm gonna discard Necropotence triggers. So I go back to my instep and silence wore off, right?
yeah, any end
It's
of
so
turn
good.
effects
It's so good.
end at the cleanup step. So
Oh, Necropotence is
Angel's
so good.
Grace,
Yep.
Silence, things like that. You can win.
Ranger Captain.
Yep. You can do some shenanigans with it, but the majority of the time you cannot gain priority in untap and cleanup.
Mhm.
Then at the beginning of every phase, anything that would trigger happens. So something that triggers in your upkeep will trigger as you go into your upkeep. There are a few
Mhm.
things that will happen before that happens. So draw step. You will draw before any trigger that happens in your draw step will happen.
Yep.
So Sylvan Library. If I will draw my card and then I will decide if I want to draw the two extra. I
Mm.
get to look at that first card first,
Mm.
or anything else that happens in my draw step.
Okay.
Then attackers. I need to declare my attackers before priority happens. It once I'm in the declare attacker step.
Mhm.
Blockers, you declare blockers before priority is gained, but you will gain priority after the fact. And
Mhm.
then damage, nobody gains priority.
Damage is a static effect.
Damage is similar to untap. It's damage is its own step. That damage step happens. There's no priority. The priority is then gained at the end of combat.
Okay, that's why like say I have like an Atraxo lifelink.
Hmm.
If I go to zero, if I go to -3, and then lifelink will trigger, not trigger, but lifelink will go off after damage, and then I don't die.
So yeah, that's something that. So say you have lifelink. Lifelink is part of dealing damage with something that has lifelink. As you deal
Mm.
the damage,
So
you
it's not a
also gain that
trigger.
much life. It's not a trigger. If you have something like Spirit Link, which says whenever the enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life, that
Hmm.
is a trigger that doesn't happen until the end of combat if it's dealt during combat.
Hmm.
So if you die during combat, and even though you would gain that life from that trigger, you'll still die because that trigger doesn't happen. But like one of the big things, we'll go with the
Huh.
CDH example with Timna. If Timna dies during combat, you don't get the trigger at the end of combat
Correct. 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 Okay,
because
I'm following. I'm
yeah,
following you now. Okay.
because
Okay.
she's not there to trigger after damage step.
But even if creatures dealt damage, she's gone.
Correct.
Okay. I
Because
got
her
you.
trigger doesn't happen because of damage. It happens at the end of combat.
Yeah. So
Timna's
right
weird.
before I let you go, let's talk about the all the steps.
Yeah.
Untap, upkeep,
So
draw,
untap,
main
upkeep,
phase.
draw, main phase one, or pre-combat main phase, depending the way that it's
Okay.
currently ruled.
Yep.
Then you go into the combat phase, which is
Mm-hmm.
beginning of combat,
Get
declare
it.
attackers, declare blockers,
That's
damage,
okay.
end of combat.
So damage and a combat are different.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Then you go
Okay. Then
into
moving into the second phase.
correct. Then you go into second main phase or post combat main phase, whichever is the current rule if they
Yep.
change that
Yep.
again.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
After second main phase is end step,
It goes straight to end step.
straight to end step.
Okay.
Then there's cleanup after that. If
Okay.
something happens in cleanup, it will go back to end step.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of CDH players and actual commander players, they don't really know how combat works because it's not that prevalent. I had a guy ask me about first strike, and we're in CDH, and
Yes,
I'm like,
so
oh,
technically if there's first strike, the way it will
double
go
strike, first
is
strike,
so you
a
declare
CDH. Yeah.
attackers, declare blockers. The technical step is then first strike damage, then there is priority, then normal damage, then
Mhm.
it goes into end of combat.
Yeah, that shit's crazy. I learned a lot. I appreciate the mind break trap thing. Blew my mind.
Well, I'm happy to help. Like I said, if anybody wants to send in any questions or specific interactions, I'd
Yeah,
be happy
man.
to come back on and answer them,
I'm
or go through
I'm
my
down.
process of how I find rules. So
You are the Doom of Fools judge. I am so down. And then I think next podcast we're gonna do together, I think you're gonna be a human. You're gonna be Russell. You're
I'll
not
I'll,
gonna
I'll
be the
be I'll be
judge.
player.
We're gonna talk about because you are a good player. I played with you. We're gonna talk about some Savala, maybe do Savala deck tech.
Okay.
I do those. I do a lot of those.
Yeah.
So if you want to do Savala deck tech, let's do it.
All right. Sounds
So
good to me.
all right, man. I appreciate your time. That's another episode. I appreciate everybody. We have Discord now. It's in the links. Hit the subscribe button. That's Russ. Y'all have a good day. See ya.